Why we study history, why we study Black history. We study history to fight whiteness. We study history to fight white supremacy and CAIDS. The letters CAIDS means culturally immune identity deficiency syndrome. CAIDS has caused much destruction in the African American community. CAIDS is a psychological equivalent to the AIDS virus. This is an infectious mental illness that causes the individual to lose his or her immunity to white second frequency mental domination of their mind and loss of identity. We study it because it explains where, what we were, and what we can do to make the world better today and especially tomorrow. Amos Wilson discussed how the lack of real awareness of Black history can cause mental problems. Wilson wrote that, and I quote, "When we permit another people to name and define, we permit another people to gain domination and control over us." Dr. Wilson adds that we must recognize the intimate relationship between culture, history, and personality. If we do not know our history, then we do not know our personality. This led Dr. Wilson to declare history is used to intimidate African people and make them feel inferior and cultureless. Many people of African descent are separated from their true history because they fail to realize that Eurocentrists write history to maintain the status quo. Today, this purpose is to white supremacy. Dr. Wilson maintained that the European writing of history is in tandem with everything else European, and its purpose is ultimately the same, to maintain European power and domination. The best way for white supremacists to maintain this domination of history over Black and African people is to encourage African people to concentrate on slavery in the West African kingdoms, because this period relates to the expansion of the European. If you read official history texts, except for the Kingdom of Meroe, Blacks did not have any great civilization until the rise of the West African kingdoms and the Muslim domination of the Indian Ocean. Using the periods of European and Muslim domination of world trade makes it appear that Africans and Black history is dependent on efforts of outsiders, white people. No! Whereas when we look at native Nubian, Kemetic, Sumerian, and Dravidian civilizations, we are looking at ancient civilizations that were founded by Black people in Africa and taken by these Black people to Eurasia. We are encouraged to study this period because it corresponds to the period when the European began to expand. This fits in with the myth that Europeans have always ruled the world. This is a myth. Black Muslims in Spain and Portugal ruled much of these countries until 1492. In addition, Africa did not come under the domination of European powers until 1899. And for a considerable period after this date, European powers were trying to militarily pacify Africa. We must fight the white supremacy pandemic that causes CAIDS. The white supremacy pandemic has been in existence for the past 200 years in the form of colonialism, Jim Crowism, and apartheid. It is a virulent disease that causes mental illness, resulting from psychological harm, depression, empty self-esteem, and in extreme cases produces a feeling of hopelessness. The letters CAIDS mean culturally acquired immune identity deficiency syndrome. CAIDS has caused much destruction. We have to understand, in a sense, that it also impacts upon identity. We learned this from Joanne Coromonte, a member of our Patreon. You see, as a proud Black man or Black woman, we must fight for our identity. We must fight to fill our esteem with love of ourselves and love of Black people, African people. Although Europeans were not ruling much of the world until the late 19th and 20th century, European history texts make it appear that the hegemony existed much earlier, all the way into the rise of Egyptian civilization. This is a lie. This is a lie. This is a myth by mainstream European historians. Yes, we have a Black history. We must fight for this history. We must know our history. The only way we can save ourselves is to know and who and what we are and to be ready to say we are an African people. Be one.